Hey guys, SunDown here. This can be my chapter review to Nanatsu no Taizai, or the 7 Deadly Sins 263 Darkness Bursts. Now, these chapters which have been focused primarily on Estarossa and his kind of little adventure going on, a mad killing spree type thing, these chapters have been awesome, and this chapter was no exception to that. Awesome chapter, and I really enjoyed it. So let's go exactly through what happened. So the chapter starts with Estarossa once again trash talking the archangels Sadiel and Tarmiel, saying that they've held a grudge for like 3,000 years, which is a hell of a long time. He also notices how much, this is a really key part actually, he also notices how much hatred they must harbor towards him, seeing as he killed their younger brother, and how his commandment of love seems not to work on them, and his commandment is, if you've forgotten, if anybody harbors hatred towards him, I think it might be anything. If anybody harbors hatred towards him specifically, or just harbors hatred in general, I don't know which of the two it is. I think it might be towards him specifically. They can't harm anyone. They can't bring harm to anyone. So obviously that's one of the reasons why we think he may have beaten Mael. If he hated him for some reason, and then he couldn't bring harm to him, then it's GG. Estarossa kicks his ass all day. So here, like I said, we get full confirmation of our previous assumptions from the last chapter. People who have received the divine protection of the supreme deity, like the archangels have, are seemingly immune to a commandment's effect. So a commandment doesn't work on an archangel, it seems like, at the moment. I'm not sure if that depends on how strong the commandment is, or whether they are just immune to a commandment. Now, you'd think that therefore a commandment would be immune to an archangel's grace, but it turns out the archangels are actually like double the strength almost of a single commandment, so it makes sense that their grace would work and that the commandment wouldn't work. Otherwise, just having 10 commandments against 4 archangels would be heavily outweighed by numbers and force. So it makes sense in a way that the 4 archangels do have that kind of superiority over a single commandment, because that just weighs it up evenly. So Tarmiel then goes to speak everyone's mind. But how did Estarossa kill Mael without the use of his commandment? And that's exactly what I was thinking when I read those panels. I was like, bruh, how did Estarossa do anything to Mael without the use of his commandment? And personally, I thought his commandment would play a large part in it. And additionally, seeing how even the archangels are unsure of exactly how Mael died, it's safe to assume here, I think, that Nakaba is hiding exactly how Mael died. He's dancing around Mael's death and the surrounding issues, and there's going to be some big reveal regarding it. There has to be some big reveal regarding it at this point, because he's just been dancing around all day long, and we have really no idea how Mael died at all. But the other thing the behavior of the archangels shows is that they are simply unable to comprehend how Mael lost, or even that Mael would lose. And knowing the full extent of his grace, sunshine, this means they even think that he would have won during the night. They feel he would have won during the night easy. So now I don't want to talk about power levels like I have before, and I assume I don't know. Assume I know about the power scaling in this manga, because the one time I did do that, Arthur wound up dead, and then I was like, okay, shit. So the whole Arthur thing was a huge debacle. But yeah, so I don't really want to talk power levels, but I just want to address this one fact. Mael did not die, I think, by normal means, and Estarossa is definitely either hiding something in terms of someone may have helped him, or he's simply unaware that someone may have helped him defeat Mael, or something like that. And there have been speculations online that maybe Gartha did something to help him along, which would explain his solemn face and his weird Mael comments the other week. I think it was a chapter or 2 ago, but we simply don't know. I mean, like, Gartha, even if he did help Estarossa, there should have been no further bonds between Gartha and Mael, and that's what it seemed like. And Gartha's been missing this chapter, so I don't exactly know what exactly has gone down. But there is something more to, obviously, Estarossa versus Mael. With this, Estarossa asks why the archangels can't comprehend something so simple. He was just stronger than Mael ever was. So he then proceeds to impale Tarmiel with his arm, and this would have shocked me, except I didn't believe for a second that Tarmiel was damaged or even wounded properly, or even killed. I didn't think that for a second. So we then go to Elizabeth and Derriere, who are still hounded by the Black Hound. Elizabeth makes quick work of it with a new technique, the ordeals of Jonah, or Yusuf, if you know, you know, which take the shape it takes the shape of a whale with its maw wide open. Now, much like in the story of Jonah, the whale swallows the black hound whole, leaving Elizabeth to look for survivors, anybody like Hauser or Gila or anything like that, and none of them seem to be there. And Dedieri comments how no one could have survived the black hound. You know, it only disappears once it's rend burnt flesh from bone and stuff like that. So cue Diane showing her grit, really, with everyone popping out from underground. So it seems like Diane used her abilities of earth manipulation to kind of drag everyone underground. I think it was drag everyone underground rather than cover them up in soil. Either way, they were kind of level. The ground seemed level, so I assume she dragged them underground, and they were safe from the Black Hound and the Hellblaze technique. And so they were out of harm's way, and they were fine. With this, we go back to Estarossa and the Archangels. As expected, one of the first things we see is Estarossa looking confused as hell as to why Tarmiel's body suddenly turned to water, simply collapsing around Estarossa's arm. Now, this was no doubt a result of Tarmiel's grace, which is ocean. And this was really the point in the chapter where I started to think that, and it served really as the beginning of Estarossa's ass whoopage. I mean, like, he was getting his ass kicked from this moment on. So, hearing Sariel giggle at his foiled attempt to kill Tarmiel, Estarossa turns and throws his mighty elbow straight at Sariel, only for it to be deflected, and lacerations appear on his like from his tricep up, really, in like this helical fashion, and he's just spewing blood out of it. And I was like, yo, shit, what the hell is that? That's part of Tornado, really? So even now, with his arm almost like cut to ribbons almost, Estarossa's cockiness remains, saying that if this is all their graces can do, it's not that special, you know. And then we have Sariel getting a little bit more serious. He points at Estarossa and goes, bitch, I'm about to show you what my grace can do. And Sariel summons some major winds. Not quite a tornado at this point, but some major winds, decking Estarossa and knocking him around violently. I mean, like, it's even cutting him up slightly. It's like Kamaitachi almost. And by the end of this, he gets knocked straight into Tarmiel's ocean, which turns out to be a legitimate freaking ocean. I mean, like, it's an ocean. That's the only way to describe it. And so it turns out that Sariel tornadoed Estarossa so hard he got freaking Wizard of Ozd into another plane of existence, which is actually what happens. It turns out that Sariel and Tarmiel have created a separate dimension known as the Domain of God, using their graces for the sole purpose of kicking the shit out of Estarossa. So they've made this new dimension called the Domain of God for the sole purpose of kicking Estarossa's ass, and it seems to be a byproduct of their graces. Now, I assume this ability prevents them from causing major damage to their surroundings, but it also raises a couple other points. Does this technique require two archangels to be done, or can each archangel create this domain where they're in full control almost? If so, if each archangel can control or create this Domain of God, this once again brings up the question of how the frick did Estarossa beat Mael, but it also brings up the question of if each archangel could create their own Domain of God, what would Ruduciel's and Mael's graces allow them to do within their own Domain of God? I mean, like, especially in Ruduciel's case, which his grace is Flash, I think it is. Does he just instantly become faster, or like infinitely faster than he was? It seems like Tarmiel's and Sariel's graces are really fit for their own domain because they're kind of elemental, but Ruduciel's, I'm not sure if it's called Flash now I think about it, but his one essentially sped him up. It might have been called Flash, and he became like Ichigo in Bankai, you know. He just incredibly fast, but I'm not sure how that would translate over to this Domain of God. Miles must have been an awesome sight to see, just a freaking sun be like burning the flesh off of its enemies, just like coming right up to their faces. That would be awesome. That would be so cool. So it once again brings up, how did Estarossa beat Mile? So Estarossa tries to tear the place down like the madman he is. He's like, I'm gonna get out of here with just by tearing the place down. The archangels tell him not to even try it, saying they have full control of the oceans and winds. But according to the Reddit subreddit and one of its moderators, the translation here should have been, there's no point in trying to escape this dimension. It would be like spitting in an ocean or breathing a sigh into a tornado. So rather than saying they have full control of the oceans and winds, they're saying there's no point in trying to escape. And then what they say after that essentially means it's useless to try and escape. So, standing relatively relaxed, Sariel and Tarmiel dish out some major hurt on Estarossa, summoning winds out of nowhere and submerging Estarossa under the waves. Estarossa is essentially stuck inside a giant washing machine, and he's just getting rolled around at this point. And what happens here is the washing machine kind of goes bad, and Sariel puts in a little bit more work, summoning an actual tornado on top of the water. So it's the first time an actual tornado pops up instead of just, major winds. And out of nowhere, this part was really cool. The tornado suddenly blackens out as if it was made out of the storm clouds. And right on cue, lightning starts to form within the tornado. And I was like, oh shit. Whenever there's lightning and tornadoes mixed, bruh, just get out of that place and run as fast as you can. So toying with him now, the tornado vacuums Estarossa towards itself, vacuuming up even some of the ocean that Tarmiel created, and basically just waits for Estarossa to arrive. And the chapter ends with Estarossa entering the tornado and being struck with a year's worth of lightning. And I was just like, wow, Estarossa overestimated himself, and now he's feeling the consequences. So this was awesome. But the question is, what will Estarossa do now? I think he'll just get his ass kicked, to be fair. People are saying he'll absorb the commandments he has in his possession and go apeshit, become that. Because we had Monspeet. I actually found out his name was pronounced Monspeet, and I was like, what? But we had Monspeet telling us that if it's assumed that if Estarossa absorbed more than his commandment, he would destroy himself, probably go insane or something like that, or he'd kill himself. So so I do think he's probably not going to absorb commandments, but not for that reason. The reason I think he's not actually going to absorb the commandments he has in his possession is because it's actually safe to assume he doesn't know how to do that, seeing as he didn't even know that extracting someone's commandment was possible in chapter, let me see what chapter it was, chapter 247. I'll put a small thumbnail in for y'all. But so he didn't even know extracting a commandment was possible, so there's no way he knows how to absorb a commandment, and I doubt he'll gain a power up that way. So I seriously doubt that. If any of y'all are thinking that, I don't think so. I do, however, think that Cusack and Chandler, or even both of the guys, will pop up to save Estarossa. They have their own allegiances to both Meliodas and Zeldaris, but they're not about to let a prince die. It's not within them to let a prince of the Demon Clan die, I mean, the Demon Clan are very kind of, if you're not strong, you're not worth it, but Estarossa has already been valued as a commandment. They're not going to let him die, and also he's a prince. They're not going to let him die. So I fully expect Cusack or Chandler, or even both of them, to jump in, save his ass, and get him out of there. Or maybe even take on the Archangels, because that would be an awesome fight to see, seeing the masters of Meliodas and Zeldaris going in against two Archangels. That would be awesome. But then we have Elizabeth there, and I'm not sure exactly what would go down. Would Chandler be focused on trying to kill her? Cusack did something a few chapters ago, and then he returned, and we don't know what that was, so maybe that might come back into fruition. Who knows? But everything this chapter was good. I really enjoyed it, and especially the parts with Estarossa, and seeing the Archangels going in with their graces like that. It was really good to see. And I just don't believe that Estarossa single-handedly took out Mile. You can talk to me about that in the comments. Tell me what you think. But until the next chapter, I've basically done this review. So like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Any theories or any comments you'd like to make down below, good stuff. And I'll see you guys in a bit.